There is absolutely nothing to talk about.
Sure. Absolutely nothing whatsoever. Nothing comes to mind that I can think of.
Absolutely nothing. Literally nothing. I'm just kidding. Where the fuck do I begin? First of all, as a New Yorker, the Jets are in my backyard. Well, not literally. Sure. Well, not literally, but you know,
close enough.
Close enough. Sure, whatever.
You're closer than I am. We'll put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's break the news right out of the gate. The Jets fired General Manager Joe Douglas after a 30-win, 64-loss record, 3-9 start to the season for the Jets, and
something like that.
A majority of fans drank the Kool-Aid for the Jets, myself included. Yeah, we both did. We both drank the Rodgers Kool-Aid. We both drank the Jets Kool-Aid. And let's be honest here, Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas both find themselves at the job. And to be completely honest, the wrong two men are leaving one Jets drive.
Yeah.
This is not even up for debate. Woody Johnson and Christopher Johnson, since 2000, the New York Jets have been a perennial tire fire. Not even close. And to go through how many quarterbacks since 2011, Mark Sanchez, Geno Smith, Greg McElroy, Matt Sims, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Michael Vick of all things was here. Like, Sam Darnold and his ghost-seeing ass should be surprised he's not in Pumpkin Hill at this point. That was another bad joke. But anyway, I'll be here all week, folks.
Oh my goodness.
We'll get.
You don't know anything until you've seen that song performed live.
I've never seen it live.
I have.
How fantastic is it?
It was ridiculous. I don't know how it happened, but they just. I was at the Sonic concert that they did here a few months ago, and they just randomly played Pumpkin Hill. So
you were just like, Dan.
I texted you too. I was like, oh my god, they're playing Pumpkin Hill.
That's fantastic. But Jack, I want to hear from you because when the Jets fired Joe Douglas, I could not help but think of a very select few amount of Jet fans that I know. Ryan, who was on the podcast, Ryan McCarthy of No Credentials Required, was the first person I thought of because he's been a Jets fan since he was 4 years old. And the fact that they're going through this again is unfucking believable. So, what do you think? Because I'm pissed.
I don't know what to... It's one of those things where it's like, will selling the team even help out with what's going on? I think it just depends on how that goes. But at the same time, it's like... It's been such a disaster for such a long time. Like, such an unmitigated disaster that at some point, something like that has to happen.
Has to.
And, you know... I think the proof is in what we're seeing with the Commanders this year. Dan Snyder has had that team in the shit for God knows how long.
Yeah.
They fire him. They force him out, however that went down. He sells the team to Josh Harris. And all of a sudden, they're second in the division, and they're basically a playoff contender. Jaden Daniels is one of the most electric rookies in the game. And it's like, you can have something like that. Maybe you don't need to necessarily. I think there are some debates. Do you not get rid of Aaron Rodgers? I don't think you need to get rid of Aaron Rodgers yet.
See, here's where I disagree. Here's where I disagree with you because Rodgers.
I'm not saying yes or no.
Rodgers got Saleh. Rodgers had an assist in getting Saleh fired. He had an assist in a lot of the moves that were made prior to him being traded here. He did. He flat out did. Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb.
He's why Nathaniel Hackett was there.
He's why Nathaniel Hackett's there. Exactly. But at the same point, he did not make the overall transactions and roster decisions. That belongs to Joe Douglas. And if the athletic report that is out there is real, that Woody Johnson basically had a say in everything, down from top to bottom, from management to coaching to roster decisions. I'm sorry, but that's ridiculous. Again, the wrong two people are leaving the Jets.
Yeah, I think that there is a fine line as an owner in sports that can be crossed here and there between, like, should I stay too involved or should I back off a little bit?
Yeah.
And, you know, I think there are some, to go with another New York team, for example, there are some more, like, I guess, slightly more acceptable things. Like, the owner of the Rangers, James Dolan, he said that he wanted his team to not trade out of the first round because, granted, it was kind of a weird reason, but I guess it makes sense. Like, he owns the Sphere.
Yeah.
The draft was at the Sphere in Vegas, so he was like, I want my team to be showcased on there, so I don't want us to trade out of the first round. But
yeah, you're right in that sense, because there are
something like that doesn't really mess with the team too much as a whole. It just means you can't trade a first round pick. But at the end of the day, maybe that's not. Maybe you should hold on to a first round pick. Like, I don't know. Like, obviously, Dolan has been accused of a lot worse, has done a lot worse. So yeah. I'm not calling him innocent per se. I'm just using that as an example. It's like something like that is an example of ownership getting involved to the point where it doesn't screw up your team completely. But if Woody Johnson, in the Jets case, is involved head to toe at every single little last thing.
Yes. I'm willing to bet that report's real. Because
I wouldn't be surprised
if what our friends at U Stadium are reporting from The Athletic is true, then this situation goes from bad to, like, undescribably worse. Undescribably. And you cannot blame anyone else here but Woody and Christopher Johnson. You flat out cannot.
No, you can't.
You can't. You can't. And as much as we like to point the finger at Aaron Rodgers, we would love to point the finger at Aaron Rodgers. Well, I don't know about you, but
to an extent,
I'm sure he gets. If Woody and Christopher Johnson isn't the subject of the finger pointing, then Rodgers probably gets like 80% of the blame. The other 20% is coaching, because when Saleh was not the problem. Robert Saleh, that defense was elite, really good.
Yeah.
And when Saleh got canned, all of a sudden the defense takes a nosedive. Like a terrible nosedive. Granted, the offense got a little better, but Saleh wasn't the problem. Joe Douglas, say what you want about his draft record, his free agent decisions, he really was not the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think Joe Douglas has had a pretty, like, up and down tenure with the Jets, to be honest, because it's been, like, he's hit on a lot of his picks, but then there's also been a lot where he's missed. But he stays aggressive at times, too, and I think that maybe at some point the Jets just kind of figured that was a little bit more than enough.
Perfect example.
Of him being too aggressive.
A perfect example is the Jamal Adams deal. I do not think that trade gets done under Mike McCagnon. Joe Douglas was willing to part with their best defensive player at the time in Jamal Adams and got a haul from the Seahawks. Right?
Yeah, I was thinking of was it James Robinson, whoever that running back was the other year? Where,
for the Jaguars.
When Breece Hall got hurt and he made that trade.
Yeah.
Mid-season.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I wasn't like totally blaming Douglas for any of their issues, because it's like, you know, that when you're willing to make moves like that, or when you're willing to do what he did earlier this year and trade for Devontae when their receiving core needed help, it's like, you know, he was never willing to, like, lie down and basically say, this is what we have, we're just going to ride out the year and see where things go.
Correct.
Like, he was willing to make moves.
When Jermaine Johnson went down, the Hassan Reddick deal was finished in, 2 weeks?
Something like that.
Something like that. And we could focus on the good, but also we mentioned it earlier in the segment here. Joe Douglas had a 30-64 record.
Yeah, that isn't good.
As the general manager of the Jets.
He did inherit a pretty crummy team to begin with, but
regardless.
Yeah.
Regardless.
It's not good.
When you signed and drafted the talent that he brought in, the record should go up. At least the record be almost flipped. Almost.
Yeah.
It's such a shit situation because I don't know, some Jet fans are clamoring for Steve Cohen to buy the Jets, and I don't know if he's that stupid or if he's willing to get involved with the juggernaut that is the NFL. But it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world. But then again, what do I know? What do we know?
What do we know?
I don't know.
It could work. It could not.
It could
You never
work.
really know unless it happens. So
Yeah, true. Good point.